All right, Uhuru comrades, this is Tichara Masimba. I'm reaching out to you from the Black Power Blueprint project. I wanted to give everybody an update on the work that we're doing through the Black Power Blueprint, which is a program of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, as well as Black Star Industries. Black Star Industries, of course, named after recognition of Marcus Garvey and his steamship line. So for those who don't know, the Black Power Blueprint is an initiative that we are leading through APEDF and Black Star Industries on the ground here in St. Louis. We have purchased several properties. We're renovating them, and we are really spearheading economic development in St. Louis, and in particular in North St. Louis. And so this is economic development that is created by the African community in St. Louis. So this is your economic development. This is not something that is created by a corporation. It's not something created by even your local politicians. This is something that is created by the masses of Black people right here on the ground in St. Louis, and these are your institutions. So one of the things that we are doing is creating or renovating a building located at 4101 West Florissant, right at Alice, down the street from O'Fallon Park. This is a building that we refer to as a Uhuru House, and it'll be a community center. And it is 3 levels, almost 9,000 square feet of space. It also has a basement. So we'll have on the first floor what we call a Quaba Hall, which will be a facility that will allow you that you can rent out for weddings, birthday parties, holiday events, baby showers, you name it, political events, community meetings, etc. You can rent this space out. It'll be called a Quaba Hall. Quaba is a tree word. It means welcome. We'll have offices on the second floor, and this will really serve as a hub for our organization and for the people, the African community in St. Louis, to have a community-owned, community-operated center in the heart of North St. Louis. And if anybody knows anything about the area I'm talking about, near O'Fallon Park, right on West Florissant, you know that like so many of our communities, that community has been hit hard. There's no development in that community, virtually none. And in fact, the building that we are in has been dilapidated for 12 years, was vacant for 12 years before we purchased it. So it is a community that is vibrant. You can really see Black people and all their beauty in this community. And yet, for all of the reasons associated with African people being the colonized people, we have seen no economic development in our interest in that community, which is characteristic of so many communities all around, wherever we see African people in the world. The only kind of economic development we see doesn't happen for African people. It happens at the expense of African people. So we see gentrification that runs us out of the community, leaves the community blighted and destroyed. But we are fighting that. We are creating economic development right on the ground. So that is one of the projects of the Black Power Blueprint, the Uhuru House. And Uhuru is a Kiswahili word which means freedom, taken from the Mau Mau, who led an armed revolution in Kenya against the British. So we also, across the street from the Uhuru House, we've purchased 2 other properties, 2 other buildings, as well as 2 vacant lots. The buildings are in real bad condition, so we're going to knock them down. We're going to raise those 2 buildings, and then we'll use that space for partially for a parking lot for the events that happen at the Uhuru House across the street, but also for the outdoor market that many of you saw this summer when we hosted our first at One Africa, One Market Nation, One Africa, One Nation outdoor marketplace here in St. Louis in July at Turner Park in the 18th Ward. And we want to thank the 18th Ward, the alderman there for allowing us to do that. But we have purchased property and we'll be doing that, hosting that market on that space. So if you're a vendor or you want to be a vendor, if you want to get off the plantation, if you want to be able to sell your goods, things that you make, things that you have acquired, and you want to be able to offer those to the African community, if you want to be able to provide a living for yourself and your family, we will create the space for vendors to come to set up. We plan on having outdoor markets during the nighttime. So we are in the process of creating a vibrant community. So that is the second major project of the Black Power Blueprint. The third thing is Uhuru Jiko Community Commercial Kitchen. And that is a huge building that many of you will be able to identify by me describing it. It is located right on Natural Bridge in Goodfellow, across from Goody Goody, on the opposite side of the street of Goody Goody, on the opposite corner of Joe's Clothes. It used to be a huge like boathouse or building that sold boats back in the day. And it is a kind of round, oval-like building, large building. We purchased that. So we are going to renovate that building. It'll be, as I stated, Uhuru Jiko Community Commercial Kitchen. That'll be a bakery. It'll be a cafe. And we are also proud that we will bring an African independent workforce program. So this will give Africans the opportunity to gain skills in the culinary field so that we can be able to find work, find employment, but also be able to build businesses. So, African men and women coming out of prison who have no other options, virtually no options for a legitimate means of making a living when they come out of prison. And many of them didn't have it before when they went into prison, and that was the reason they went to prison. So when they come out, they have no options. We will provide options for them. And this is, again, what's important about this is that this is an institution created by African people on the ground representing the interests of poor, working class African people. It is this sector of our community that is leading the struggle, and that is vitally important because every other sector of even the African nation will sell us out. We have to have movements run, led, created, by and in the interests of the African working class. So this is the third institution. So phase one of this redevelopment project is we are attempting to raise $300,000 to make it happen. We've already, the last report I got says that we've raised nearly $50,000 or so. And I think that number has gone up. So, but we need your help in raising money. So if you can make donations, you're not making a donation to some faraway notion, something vague idea in the future that somebody is offering you to create something, a school somewhere way off sometime in the future, hopefully. These are institutions that we've already purchased. These are institutions that we are already renovating. We are there on a day-to-day basis. If you live near or ride up and down West Florissant on a day-to-day basis, you'll see workers out there. You won't see workers anywhere else up and down that strip on West Florissant. Certainly not African workers working in an African-owned institution, especially one owned by the people in the interest of the masses of African people. So you'll see that out there. You'll see, as I stated, we've raised a portion of the money already. So we are on the ground. We have staff like myself working on a day-to-day basis. Um, so this is something that is happening. This is something that will happen. We just need the African community and anybody else who is in solidarity with the interests of the African working class to participate. And one way you can participate is by making a donation. It's not enough to get on Facebook, make the perfect meme, although that's necessary. It's not enough to just complain to your family and friends about the state of the affairs in the Black community. It's not enough to get on to look at the television and talk about what Trump is and isn't doing, because this crisis that we see African people facing worldwide is not something that Trump created, and it's not something that he can solve. So we're calling on you to come out and be a part of real Black power in action. I want to talk a little bit about what our objectives are, because it's a critical question to talk about, why we're doing this, what our ultimate objective is, what is the social force that is leading this work. We have to be able to answer these questions. I wanted to just take a little bit from the book An Uneasy Equilibrium by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the political report to the 6th Congress of the African People's Socialist Party. This is the chapter entitled African Economic Self-Reliance and Dual Power. Page 265, self-reliance is key to national liberation. Leading the struggle one of the things that has distinguished our party from assimilationist organizations and puts us firmly in the camp of Marcus Garvey is our history of building self-determination institutions. Mostly this has happened within the framework of our strategy of building dual and contending power as part of the contest with the existing colonial power. So I'm going to come back to that. We say dual and contending power is part of our strategy of engaging the colonial power in a contest for power. When we talk about colonialism, we talk about one foreign people or country dominating politically, economically, and socially another people. So they go to another people's lands, they take their resources, take the land, appropriate the labor of the people. Even if this is a country with borders and a political leadership that claims its independence, they may even have their own flag, but it is colonialism, which is the direct foreign control of a people, I should say. So our strategy is for dual and contending power, which I'll come back to. Our quest for dual power is also different from assimilationist organizations such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, do not have any such obligations, because for them, the ultimate aim is to integrate into the existing capitalist colonialist system. So we are not struggling for that. Our quest for dual power is also different from the self-reliance, do-for-self institutions initiated by the original Nation of Islam, because our intent is not to build a movement of petty merchants. For our party, the work for self-determination and self-reliance is an integral part of the struggle for national liberation under the leadership of the revolutionary African working class. Okay, so our struggle is for national liberation under the leadership of the working class. And this is what you see here on the ground. You see, if you go by the Uhuru House again, you ride down West Florissant, you see African men and women working, hard hats, boots, and these are the people whose interests we are struggling in, the poor and the African working class. We want to create an independent economy, which will, by creating what we call dual and contending power. So we recognize that anytime you are under colonialism, there is the potential to create a temporary temporary situation of dual and contending power between the forces of liberation and the colonial forces. We recognize that this is not a permanent condition, that it is only temporary, and that somebody has to win out eventually. But we understand that it is this method, this strategy of dual and contending power, which is necessary for a larger struggle for liberation. And it is important for the people to see that those who talk Black power have the capacity to answer the critical questions of how we will house, feed, and clothe our people. Otherwise, they'll just see, this call for Black power as empty rhetoric, and they'll also allow Black power will also be something that will be co-opted eventually by other social forces, not in the interest of the African working class. So we have to be able to give people this capacity to see, number one, that Black power and the struggle for national liberation is something that is real and tangible and possible. Beside that, we have to answer the very practical question of how we really will house, feed, and clothe our people. And so our struggle is to engage the dominant class, the ruling class, in a contest for power to win our people toward a stance of political independence. So I think that's important. That is what we're doing. This is what distinguishes us from everybody else. This is what distinguishes us from people who talk about economics, but their end goal is essentially just assimilation. Even if it is to create some kind of a economic enclave that they imagine that they're going to be able to create inside of a colonial situation, that's still, attempting to create an enclave on a plantation. And that's not what we're struggling for ultimately. We understand the issue of national independence as inextricably tied to the question of economic self-reliance. National independence without economic self-reliance is better defined as neo-colonialism. So national independence without economic self-reliance is better defined as colonialism. So on one hand, you cannot have economic independence without a struggle for national liberation. You cannot have economic independence without a real struggle for national liberation. Nor can you have a struggle for national liberation without having economic independence. Both of those just lead to what we call neo-colonialism. The colonizer realizes that the people have gotten to a point where they're willing to struggle for independence. They recognize white power as the source of their domination, and it's at that moment that colonizers will begin to create another solution to the crisis of colonialism, and that solution is neo-colonialism. It becomes Black power and white face. So we're not struggling for that. We're not struggling for some kind of independent economic institutions without national liberation, and we're not struggling for national liberation without economic institutions. I don't have much else to say, so I just want to thank you. I want to say Uhuru. You can reach us. How do you reach us? You can reach us by telephone at 314-399-9327, 314-399-9327. Of course, you can see us on Facebook at Black Power Blueprint. You can reach us by website at www.apedf.org, apedf.org, and that stands for African People's Education and Defense Fund. Again, we can utilize donations. We have a $300,000 campaign to make this happen, and Black is back. Black Power is back on the ground in St. Louis. it didn't go anywhere. We've been in this, our organization, our party has been in this struggle. We never gave up. We never went underground. We never stopped struggling. So this is not new to us, but the movement has moved to has heightened in a certain kind of way, particularly after 2014 with the murder of Mike Brown. So we are here. We're making things happen in a practical way, and we are trying to solve the basic problems of food, clothing, and shelter. But we're doing it within the context of a strategy to create an independent economy as a means toward national liberation.